Kupina kuphi emakhaya amadolobheni asekoplasta khona sangena thina Mavulandlela, and a warm welcome to this week's edition of Yilungelo Lakho. It's your ride sindethela ke lapha kuhamba phambili SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. Mina ke ngimsimpiwe Ngqongwane. Mbukeli, consumers are increasingly turning to online microloans as banks tighten their lending criteria. While there are so many legit microlenders out there who advertise their services on social media platforms, crooks have now also seen an opportunity to lure unsuspecting consumers to their fake ads. Ingabe singenta njani ke sibathi saying ukuthi vikela ke kuleti nkhangiso tema microloans temgunyathi? How do you fake how do you spot a fake microloan advert? Well, to answer that, we are pleased to be joined by Leonie van Pletzen from Microloan Finance South Africa. Siphinde samukele ke naTebogo Ntsimane lo ngumphathi ke wenhlangano ile ngamela tekubolekisa National Credit Regulator NCR. Ladies, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you for having us, and good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Well. It's an absolute pleasure. Leonie, I'm going to start with you. Just take us through the mandate of the MFSA. What's the mandate and what do you guys do there?
Yes, so MFSA is the largest representative body of short-term and unsecured credit providers. We provide our members with information, advocacy and business support as well. So we represent bricks and mortar businesses and also online businesses. Yeah. So I think we have a really good consumer protection mandate, and also our members are registered with the National Credit Regulator and they comply to everything with regards to the National Credit Act.
And speaking of online businesses, we've seen a surge in the online, online ads with regards to, the micro lenders. What have you observed in terms of the fake micro lenders infiltrating the market?
There is a lot of scams, and that is unfortunate. So we are seeing credit providers that are getting cloned. So you would get a legal credit provider, their NCRCP number is being used, and then the consumers just simply go to them and access credit. So there's a lot of warning signs there. We also get consumers that are complaining to the association because the first warning sign is they have to pay an upfront fee. So even if a credit provider ever asks you to pay an upfront fee, don't do that. That's your first warning sign.
Right,
yes.
Right. And speaking of, then upfront fee, Tebogo, what have you observed? Have you seen a surge in terms of so many consumers complaining about companies or micro lenders telling their consumers to pay an upfront fee?
Look, I mean, it is there and it's a reality. You see it on TikTok, you see it all over where, there is these loans that are being advertised. Yeah. And I think people also need to look into the language that's being used when they're advertising those loans. Over and above the upfront fee, it's the language. If you are blacklisted, we will grant you a loan. That is incorrect. If you are blacklisted, it's clear that you cannot get any loan. If you're under debt review, you cannot be extended credit. So those trends are happening. It's just that with our mandate as the National Credit Regulator, the Act doesn't allow us to investigate those particular matters. But however, there is a registration department within the NCR. And when in doubt, we encourage clients then to call through to the National Credit Regulator to ascertain whether that particular credit provider in actual fact exists. And if that's the case, then we have a collaborative relationship where we can call Leonie and ask and say, look, are you aware that there is this particular credit provider who's extending credit to people but wants an upfront fee? So it is that. I think it's a matter of people being well informed and also understanding that if somebody comes to you and says, if you are blacklisted, listen, give me 50 Rand and I will extend this. And that for me, it's the language that's been used in the advert, and it's also the registration number from our department as well. And I think maybe we may need to put in checks and balances insofar as the cloning of the registration numbers that we give to registrants. So, but I would say that when in doubt, as a consumer, do call us, so that then we can then call the, Leonie's company and say, look, we are aware of this particular activities. Can you then assist? We can even take it a step further. If the consumer does call, we will not chase a consumer away. What we can do is then say, look, even though our act doesn't allow us to investigate that, but we can assist you insofar as reaching out to you know, the Hawks or subs then to assist you, because then that particular act falls squarely within the Criminal Procedure Act. So it's outside my mandate, because if I was to investigate, I would have to link that particular individual to a loan book.
Okay.
So, and that's also another thing, Leonie, where we would then make, you know, when we investigate, ascertain, is there an existing loan book? Because the credit provider who has extended that loan also falls the risk of that loan not being paid back as a result.
Well, it's quite interesting that you raised the matter of, you know, these micro lenders saying that even when consumers are distressed, even when consumers are blacklisted, they can still extend credit to them. What about those companies that say, or rather that claim that they have a higher risk appetite in terms of offering finance to distressed consumers?
That shouldn't be permitted.
Not to blacklist it.
Is it
not
against the law?
It's against the law.
Really?
Because remember, this is a consumer who's in distress. This is a consumer who simply cannot pay the existing debt. And now you further now crippling that particular consumer by now extending further debt to that consumer, knowing very well that they may not be able to even pay your debt. So it is as a result of, you know, there's this whole thing of the one-day loan, you know, that is being granted to consumers, where, you know, they give you 1,000 rand for just one day, and then, you know, within 3 days you must pay it back. That's also incorrect. Where are they going to get that money from? It happens. We have noted that.
Or even the payday loans.
Yes.
Are those also illegal?
I think you're talking about the pay advances.
Yes, the pay advances.
So it's not the payday loans.
Yes,
So payday loans are not illegal.
Yeah,
and
they're not.
Let's talk about the risk appetite.
Yes.
So our credit providers has got different risk appetites, but it has to go according to the affordability regulations of the National Credit Act.
Okay.
But advertisements such as blacklisted welcome, that is not allowed. Under debt review, come and get a loan. That's not allowed.
So basically what's not allowed is the advertisements, but the extending of credit to blacklisted consumers is also allowed to a certain extent. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it all depends on the affordability. If this person can afford the loan, because let's be fair.
So it's always by a case by case.
All of us go through bad situations in our life, and maybe you would have something on your credit bureau that's not very lucky. You forgot to pay an Edgar's account, but if you can afford that loan, the credit provider will be able to assist you. So our members serve the members that are usually the clients that are usually not served by the banks. So the bank would say, this is not within my risk appetite, and then our members would say, okay, we are going to give you credit, but within the affordability guidelines of the National Credit Act.
And the affordability guideline is very important to us as the National Credit Regulator, because if the assessment is not up to scratch, that means it's a contravention, and we deem that contravention to be a serious contravention, which could eventually lead to that credit provider being deregistered. And I make mention of these one-day loans because of the fact that we've noted that most consumers would be on debt review, they would be blacklisted, and they would still insist on having these loans extended to them. And hence we ask, what criteria did you use? Did you do your affordability? And for me, affordability, and I agree with Leonie there, is very, very important. Because why extend credit? Because if that credit is not being able to be paid for, you are the one who's going to sit with a loan book that is not serviced by the consumer. So it's a catch-22 where you want to assist those kind of consumers, but at the same time, you also still need to leverage it against the risk.
Okay, all right. Ladies, let's leave it there for now. We'll continue our discussion after the break.
Right.
And we do have our first caller, Anonymous, on the line. Anonymous, please continue holding on. We'll definitely be in conversation with you just after this break. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. Yilungelo, Lakho. Sakumela futhi ke mbukele incingo tethu sesivuliwe ukuthi nawe ungaba ingcenye yohlelo lethu namhla ungashara icingo khona manje ku-011 714 noma ke ku-011 714 ungasithumela futhi na-WhatsApp ku-060 844 9857 ungasithinta futhi nasetindlu tekuchumana ku-Facebook. Namhla ke bekunene sikhuluma ngema-micro lenders or fake online micro lenders. Kuthi ke wabona kanjani ema-micro lenders noma ke bomashonisa noma ke babolekisi betimali bemgunyathi laba advertiser ke etingudleni tekuchumana ku Facebook. How do you spot those? But before we get to that conversation, let's take our first caller, Sina Anonymous. A very good afternoon to Anonymous. Thank you so much for calling. Welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Very well. How are you, Anonymous? What's on your mind? Talk to me.
Oh, my. Okay, I was going to say anonymous. I'm from Manilati.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to make the scam online. Not sure if, but it was inspected a loan
Anonymous,
company.
Anonymous, please switch off your TV because there's terrible interference on your end.
There's no TV behind me.
Okay, please.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought I just met with the loan company. They scammed me around December. So I was done actually, so that my budget December it was too much down. So I suggested that I can take a loan of 10,000 in case for me to cover up everything that I have to do with the month. Unfortunately, when I just called, because I tried from the bank, I failed due to my low score. I have a low score. So I just called on the Facebook and I just saw the loan company they were me, and there's other one that I saw it has too many people. They since they get help for loan on that campaign. Then I just review the comments one by one, checking the comments, the status, the comments, the status. Then I just saw the people they are reading this campaign. It might alert me as well. Then I go through it, the campaign. I send you the message, inbox message.
Anonymous, your line is not the best, but my understanding is that you got a loan of 10,000 Rand, and then what happened thereafter?
I didn't get it into my bank account, but what I can tell you, they sent me a receipt to show me that they did send me the money. It is in my bank account. But the thing is that I have to pay the codes. They said they have the codes, 3 codes, but it was 300. The first code is 300. The other one it was 400, and the last one is 600. But when you pay it, you don't pay it same time. They said, no, you can just pay 10 Rand for 300 for code, and you will get your money. Then I pop up 300, there's no money. They said, no, that's not the final code. For you to reach a stage, that stage, to get 10,000 once after you paid, there is still 400. Then the 400 is the last one that you can pay. It's a PIN code. After you pay it, then you get the money.
Okay, Anonymous, I think we get the gist of your question, but thank you so much for raising this with us. And yeah, please continue watching SABC 1. Our guest this afternoon will definitely try to help you with regards to that query you have. Thank you so much for your call, Anonymous. Ladies, that's a very,
yes,
touch and go situation.
And that's exactly what I was explaining, is this upfront fee. So basically this client, accessed credit. She wanted to get credit through Facebook. They started inboxing them. Yeah. And to be fair, registered and legal microfinanciers, they would not inbox you just to say, okay, get your loan here. Right. And I'm showing you proof of payment. They would not use a Yahoo or a Gmail account. They would use something linked to their website. So when you access credit, legal credit, make sure no upfront fees. Go to their website, look at the domain that they are actually sending emails from, and nobody would ask you to pay money upfront. You are asking them for credit. You don't have money to pay upfront. Right. So that is definitely something that you should take into consideration. Always check registration as well with the NCR and also with the MFSA. You can look for the NCR's logo, for the MFSA's logo. And I want to tell you, there is online credit providers that are very reputable, but their names are getting copied, they are getting cloned, and they are also getting scammed because the consumers come back and say, but you didn't pay me my money, but they never offered them the loan.
Right. Yeah. How would you respond to that?
Look, you can't pay an upfront fee if you're asking for the loan. That already should be a red flag.
Doesn't make sense, yeah.
So it doesn't make sense. So I do agree with Leonie that there needs to be some form of cross-checks from the consumers before they can even agree to taking out those loans in the first place. And they need to report it. Okay. If we can have a mass reporting, that would be good, because we will then know how to deal with the issue, because it's now becoming systemic. So we need to take it in the sense that we need to start investigating those.
Right. Ladies, what about those companies that would send me a DM or would send me an email offering me credit finance? Is that legal? Is that even allowed? And should I flag that as a red flag, possibly?
So please tell me a little bit more about what they would they send you a Facebook message, or would they send you an email, or
both an email, a Facebook message, or on other platforms as well, that we are the so-and-so company would like to offer you credit finance?
So it would depend on where you opted in. So sometimes you would opt in to receive newsletters from credit providers, but
No, but if they randomly send you, emails, then it's not allowed.
Then I would be really wary, and I would start checking the domains once again. So if it says this loan is from ABC Credit Online, go to ABC Credit's website and check it if it's the same website as the one that you're getting it from, because that immediately is where the fraud starts to happen. Yes.
We know that there's different types of loans. There's macro loans and micro loans. So what constitutes a micro loan? And would the regulations, that govern all loans, govern the type of loans, micro loans or micro loans?
Yes, we are all governed under the same act, the National Credit Act. So our members offer short-term and unsecured credit. Short-term and unsecured credit, anything below 8,000 Rand and 6 months, and then unsecured credit is basically what it stands for. It's a bigger amount, but without a limit. So we are all registered with the NCR. We have to comply with the act, credit bureau checks, bank statements, pay slips, all of that before we can actually give you access to credit. So it's not an easy process. The vetting will be done properly by our members.
Yes.
Yeah, and this obviously to circumvent the issue of reckless lending, which is something that we really try to dissuade credit providers to do. And if you have your credit bureau, your 3 months bank statements, your pay slip and all of that, that's part of, in fact, it's mandatory.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's regulated, it's within the act, and we cannot then exercise, or we cannot deviate from the act. It is like that. So whether you're a bank, whether you're a microfinancier, it's the same thing. The rules apply across the board.
And the thing is, there's a thin line between reckless lending and as well as unsecured loans. What's the difference between the two? Because there seems to be a conflation of those two.
Reckless lending is illegal. So unsecured lending is not illegal. So unsecured lending is providing...
But are the principles the same though?
Reckless lending is when there's no affordability that has been done, no credit check has been done, no proof of income has been sought after. So reckless lending is a process that takes place, and unsecured credit is a product. So if you are reckless in offering an unsecured product, that is illegal. Reckless lending is illegal.
I still don't get it. If an institution says they're offering unsecured lending to a person who does not or cannot afford,
that's reckless.
Is that still legal?
That's reckless, and that's illegal if they can't afford it according to their affordability.
Okay.
Affordability is what allows you to participate in the credit market.
Right.
So if that affordability is not in line, let's say for some other reason you've been flagged as a slow payer, obviously it's going to impact your credit score. It's going to impact your credit reporting. So when I want to advance loans to a particular individual, I need to check through those documents and check the payment history of that individual, whether or not they are worthy of me granting that loan. So this is where you need to check your risk against the recklessness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then online applications for microloans, what are the disadvantages of this? Because now we know that there are those legit micro lenders who still offer credit online, and those fake ones. But what are the disadvantages?
So
security
is a huge issue.
Yeah,
yes.
it's a huge issue.
So from our members' side, their names get cloned. They get a bad reputation. People are getting the NCR's credit provider number, and that gets used and that gets abused. And from a consumer point of view, is your identity theft. That gets stolen. You get access. Some of the guys apply to our members with fraudulent bank statements.
Yes.
So just the security issue around online lending is very, very difficult. So that's why our members really comply to a lot of regulations. So I would not recommend all of these online lenders that you see. Make sure that they are reputable and registered with the National Credit Regulator and the MFSA.
So you still advise that people should go in person to their offices?
Not necessarily. Just make sure you do the necessary checks.
And phone.
Yeah, phone.
Phone.
Pick up the phone.
There's nothing wrong. I mean, if somebody's inboxing you, clearly there's a problem. There's no details provided.
Right.
And I think some of the things are quite basic. But to a consumer who's desperate, to a consumer who really wants, a loan at that particular moment, there's certain checks and balances that they omit to actually, you know, take into consideration when they do these online applications.
Yeah.
And for me, it's really just check. Somebody cannot inbox you randomly and say, I'm going to give you a loan of X amount. And there is no, you know, there is no company logo, there is no verification that this particular institution or this person actually exists.
Okay.
You know, it's like speaking to somebody on a two-way mirror, but you can't see them.
Right.
And it's exactly that. And you fall for it. And that is where the manipulation comes in. That is where there is an advantage of consumers being taken, you know,
for a ride.
So yeah, that's it.
Let's park our discussion for now. Let's take a quick break. Mbukele ke sesiphinde sibuyele ngasatitolo hlala kanye nathi ke siyabuya khona manje. Leli Yilungelo lakho. Welcome back everybody. Kumbula ke mbukele ukuthi tincingo setivuliwe ukuthi nawe ungaba ingcenye yenkulumo le namhla ungashaya icingo khona manje right here and right now on our studio line 0117140671 noma ke ku 0117140672. You can also send us a WhatsApp to 0608449857. Ungasithumela futhi ke timvo takho ku email yethu ke consumer@sabc.co.za. Our email address again is consumer@sabc.co.za. Ungasithinza futhi na ku Facebook. Let's take our next caller. Sina Stanley ulapha ke buhle park la eJozi. Sakumele ehlelweni baba sawubona?
Sanibonani sibhuti njani?
Siphilele kunjani baba?
Ngiyaphila.
Ukhala kusitha baba. Khuluma nami. What's on your mind?
Ya ngicela ukubuza lapha futhi mama. Makwenzeke ukuthi waboleka imali then wabhadala iminyaka emibili emithathu wasuhluleka ukuqhubeka. Then ke kwaphela umsebenzi. Kuthatha isikhathi esingakanani ukuthi igama lakho lisuleke lapha ka NCR?
Okay, Baba Stanley, thank you so much for your question. So he's basically asking if you borrowed money from a microlender or any other financier and then you lose your job. I mean, how long does it take for your name to be removed from the credit bureaus? That's the basis of his question.
You must pay your debt.
Please do.
So it will still be on the credit bureaus?
It will still be there.
As
and
long
you
as
would
still
then,
owing the microlenders?
yeah, they would flag you as a person who is slow paying. Just to make it easier in layman's terms, you know, so they would flag you. And the only way to do it is, I know that there's the issue of prescription that everybody wants to hop on. I know that in terms of our act, it's illegal to sell debt. But if for whatever reason you have borrowed money and there is action taken against you at that particular moment and you now have to pay that money back, you still need to pay it back, especially if there's a court order. It's illegal to sell debt? Say that in English. So basically, if you're a credit provider and, you know, let me make an example. Let's say Foschini, for example. Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't use names. Let's say Company A. Company A, yeah. So Company A has got a loan book, right? And in this loan book, they were unsuccessful in actually collecting those monies within a certain period. Then what they do is that they will then take that loan book and give it to Company C to then collect that money at a certain fee. Yes. So they will move that loan book, they will write it off on their side, and they will transfer that loan book to a particular individual who will buy that loan book from them and make money from that. So remember, debt prescribes after 3 years. But if there is a court orders are valid for 30 years. So you still need to pay that debt. And whether or not that debt is, you know, given to Company C. So basically the prescription of that debt does not apply if there's a court order? Yes, it does not apply. Okay, I guess that's the basis of your question, Baba Stele. Ukuthi-ke sikweletu sakho ke sitawuhlala ke kuma credit bureau up until uze uceze ukusibhadala. It can take years. Uma ngabe ke kune court order babe, lukusho ukuthi-ke sitawuhlala igama lakho litawuhlala ama credit bureau for up to 30 years. Uma ngabe kune court order. Kepha ke kunanaku lokuthiwa ke i-prescription of i-debt nangabe ke lo ke lomkwenetako noma ke mashonisa akakuthinze within a period of 3 years, then that debt prescribes. Thank you so much for your call. So yeah, go for it,
Maybe Leonie? I can just add a little bit to this because we can see consumers losing their jobs and there's nothing that they can do about that process. So the first thing that I would definitely recommend is speak to your credit provider. If you did make debt somebody, you still have the obligation to repay. But tell the credit provider, this is my situation. Can I have a payment holiday? Is there something that you can do for me? And the credit provider wants their capital back. They want to put you back into the market. So they are going to say, yes, let's give you a payment holiday. Let's find you some work so that you can do. If you see I'm still struggling, you can go to an alternative dispute resolution agent that can help you to talk to your different credit providers. And your last resort would be to go under debt review if you have a job again, but you can't afford to pay the credit provider.
Okay.
So I would say the first thing is always speak to your credit providers. The credit provider is really there to help you, and they want to bring you back into the economy. They want to assist you because they've got a relationship with their clients.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think there also needs to be some form of flexibilities from the credit providers. I mean, if you really don't want a consumer to go as far as debt counseling, then it is better that you have some form of payment arrangement over a certain time. You know, somebody who owes 1,000 rand, it doesn't make sense why you would want to put that person under debt counseling. So because, but what you basically done is that you've barred them completely from ever participating in the credit market for a certain period. So meaning that if that person has a desire to open a business, they cannot partake. Nobody's going to extend loan because of that. With debt counseling, automatically you flagged all over. So that means that you don't have an alternative. You cannot even go to a credit provider who's registered with Leone and say, look, can I have that? Because you flagged. So what I would say that is that credit providers also need to extend a bit of grace. But it doesn't mean that as consumers you must take advantage. If you have taken money, you must pay for that money. And but you can say, look, I owe you 1,000 rand. Can I pay it in 50 rands?
Yes. Yes.
Now, there's the issue of cold calling. You know, that dreaded 087 number that we all hate. So if a micro lender calls me and then, you know, they offer to extend credit to me, what do I do? Like, what's the first thing that I need to ask them? Is it a must that these micro lenders need to have an office or a physical office?
So the first thing,
and especially if they offer it online.
The first thing you must ask them is, what is your NCR number, NCR CP number? If they cannot tell you that, you can know that this guy is not registered. So an online credit provider does not necessarily have to have an office. So we see these smaller online credit providers, they operate from their home, but they have to be registered with the NCR. The second thing I would ask is, where did you get my information? Because there's the Poppy Act. You know, you can't just call somebody and tell them, I can offer you credit. Where did you get the information? And make sure that the consumer did really opt in for that. But I can tell you now, the bigger compliant companies will not make those mistakes. I think it is really your illegal companies, your spam calls. They do all of those cold callings and you just offer you credit over the phone.
I think, Leone, another contributing factor, and this is just me thinking out loud, is let's say you are registered to a particular credit bureau, and under that they would list the different, I know that there's some who would advertise certain microfinanciers. And, you know, that in itself, I see it as a security risk where clients or where consumers could be manipulated insofar as data of that, because you do consent to advertising of other, you know, providers. And that's how people are obviously manipulating that space. You have the genuine ones, you have the ones who are registered, who have our registration number, but you have those, once you click on that tick box that says, can we advertise to other third parties? I think that's where we need to check whether there isn't any security breaches there that could then exacerbate this particular issue that we are now discussing. And, you know, it's very broad. Cyber crimes are very broad. Even a bank, one of our biggest banks, can be defrauded, and it's you know, by them advancing a loan to a consumer that they genuinely think is a consumer. They will use your voice. They will use your. It's just it's insane to me how these you know guys are actually doing those things, but it does happen. Let's
leave it there for now. We'll continue our discussion in just a moment. Let's take another ad break. Leli, Yilungelo Lakho. Yilungelo Lakho. Sakumola futhi mbukele ungakhohlwa ukuthi nawe ungaba ingxenye yenkulumo yethu namhlanje usushaya licingo khona manje lapha ku-011-714-0671 noma ke 011-714-0672. You can also email your thoughts to consumer@sabc.co.za or alternatively interact with us on our social media platforms. Namhlanje bekunene sikhuluma how to spot a fake ad with regards to micro lenders online on Facebook or any other social media platforms. But let's take our next caller. Sina Roni ulapha ke kwaGafontein. Sakumukela ehlelweni sawubona. Ronnie Kwachafontein, good afternoon. Sakumole ehlelweni baba.
Good afternoon.
Khuluma nasi baba, what's on your mind? Talk to me.
I just wanted to find out if it's possible that a judgment can be in the credit report for the second time.
Your line is not the best, sir. Please try to speak up.
If you propose, I would be in the judgment in my credit report.
So it's a judgment. Please say that again, sir. You have a judgment against your name?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
And then it was removed. But then the debt has come back now.
Okay, please stay on the line. My producers will call you from a much more clearer line. But thank you so much for your call. Just expect a call from us. We'll try to re-establish connection with him from a much more clearer line. Yeah.
So basically, when you have a judgment against you,
yes,
is that then you would pay the debt and obviously the interest that has been granted by the court. And then once you have finished with that, you can then bring an application for rescission, right? So that that particular judgment can then be rescinded, and then you can obviously take that rescission judgment and then send it to the credit bureau to say, look, I have paid, the judgment has been rescinded, and here's a copy of the judgment, and then they will remove your name. So up until
the only requirement is you making full payment.
Exactly. Yes. And then what the credit provider will further do is also give you a paid up letter. Just, you know, that confirms that you have now paid.
Right,
so, but what is important is that the rescission needs to take place. Unfortunately, it is a judgment. I did mention earlier that it is valid for 30 years, and the only way that you can deal away with that is to bring an application for rescission.
Okay.
Yes.
And if the consumers are struggling with the judgment, they can
Yes.
always go to the NFO, the National Financial Ombudsman,
Yeah.
and they help the consumers free of charge. If there is issues with judgments, how to get their names cleared, I think that's also something that should be noted.
But what would they do if they don't have the means to pay back the debt?
Unfortunately, that judgment stays.
The judgment stays, so
Yeah.
they can't get any credit elsewhere.
No, they will still be able
They will
to
still
get
be able
credit.
to get credit because remember, he's paid it off.
So what are the implications of a judgment then, if I'll be able to get credit?
Look, I mean, if the credit provider gives you that settlement letter and you produce it to the credit provider, let's say it's a micro lender, they will obviously do the necessary credit checks. The only thing is that you can't go to a bank and get that particular credit because they will obviously would have flagged you on the credit bureau report.
Right,
So, but for me, it would be that you would now have to walk around with that particular settlement letter to show that you've paid,
Right.
and then access credit. And I think that's where Leonie comes in, and her registrants,
Yes.
where they try to assist there. That's the market that they're looking at.
Yes.
But from a legal perspective, you're still stuck with that judgment. And, there's organizations like Legal Aid. You can even go to Wits Law Clinic. There's so many where they will also make the necessary referrals to assist you with removing or bringing that application for rescission. So it's not like it's a closed door. I think
No.
it's more of, consumers having the necessary information as to how to then, be able to access and, remove that. I think the credit bureau takes about 48 hours once you can prove that you have the settlement letter and also the actual rescission of judgment. They can actually clear you.
Right.
You submit your ID, if I'm not, if my memory serves me correct, and you would also then submit the judgment and the settlement letter, and they can do it for you.
All right. So
Yeah.
Ronnie is now back on the line. Ronnie, good afternoon to you. We certainly hope that you can hear us clearly now. Ronnie Kwachafontein, are you still there? Okay, we seem to have a problem connecting with Ronnie, but we'll keep on trying. We'll keep on trying.
Yes,
yeah,
so let's maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Credit and judgment. So that's where the risk appetite of our members come in.
Sure.
So our members work with their own capital, and their risk appetite is a little bit higher than some of the formal institutions. So if a consumer comes to you and he has a judgment, you can still offer that consumer credit if it falls within their affordability. The affordability
Isn't that reckless lending, though?
The affordability regulations is prescribed by the National Credit Regulator.
Okay.
Because like I said, sometimes something happens within your life and you are paying that judgment, you are making the payments, but you need to buy something for your child because he's going to school. You have to get a home loan because you want to better your home. So then you need access to credit. If we are going to exclude everyone with judgments, there will be no financial inclusion. Everyone would be excluded. So that's where our members come in, where the formal institutions would actually decline them. Our members say, let's be inclusive and let's provide you with that credit.
Then it means a relaxation of some of the reckless lending laws.
No.
No, not at all.
There will never be relaxation. That, for us, that's a contravention out and out. If you fail to do your credit checks, that's it. We will investigate and we will have you deregistered. And that's, our investigations, are done efficiently. We have investigators that will go on the premises. We will ask for that loan book. We will check if the necessary documentation was acquired, and that's also a contravention in itself, where we come onto the premises and we discover that you don't have the necessary documentation to advance the loan. So that's how broad our investigations are, and that is critical for us. If there is reckless lending, Leonie knows I don't negotiate there. We will have to deregister that company. You will be sanctioned. There'll be an administrative fine that you will have to pay as a credit provider as a result. And you would have to reimburse those consumers, and whatever credit agreements that you entered into with those consumers will be declared null and void.
Yes.
Meaning they cease to
So who bears
exist.
the onus of reimbursing the consumers then?
It will be the credit provider.
Okay.
Yes.
So
if there was reckless
the risk
lending.
is there, is that if you continue, on a tyrant of, dishing out reckless credit, there's going to be repercussions.
Sure.
So the criteria for reckless lending is very stringent. It's one that we do take seriously.
All right, let's now talk about the issue of affordability checks. So I come to you as a micro lender, and then I lie about my financial status, I lie about my affordability, knowing that even my payslip reflects a certain amount of money as my income, but I know that I get other monies outside, like I go gamble, I go to sports betting sites, I play the lotto, but even though it's not in the payslip. So would I be considered as lying about my financial status and affordability?
In my opinion, definitely. I think there should be a responsibility on the consumer to say, if I lie to the credit provider, there should be a fraud case be made, because the credit provider is doing anything to assess that consumer's income and expenses. But there's certain things where you have to trust the consumer. But consumers do come in, they lie to credit providers, or they get a loan and the next day they go under debt counselling. And that is a major concern for our members as well. And that's
what are the consequences, though?
There isn't a lot of consequences. The problem at this stage is debt review is not working, debt collection is not working. So that is a major problem, and that is why it's so important for our members to do the right affordability and to make sure that they offer access to credit to the right consumer.
So even though, or even if a micro lender has identified that a consumer has lied about their own financial status, but they're repaying their loan well every month, you wouldn't do anything to them?
If the consumer is repaying their loan, that's in order because he's repaying it. But if he's not repaying it, there's not a lot of repercussions. We do report it to the NCR, but there's not a lot that the NCR can do. But if there is ever a case
breaking the law
of reckless credit, then we can say that this consumer was lying.
All right, let's leave it for now. Mugeli sasagel kefle flektina ndi asihlangane kunasibuya etitolo. Leli ilungelo lakho. Welcome back, everybody, to our very final segment. How do you spot fake online micro lenders online, on the internet, on social media pages? how do you ensure, like how do you spot some of the red flags? We still continue our conversation. So how can you, I mean, how can a consumer browsing for loans online spot a fake online financial lender? We did mention earlier on the internet and the language, but what are some of the issues or factors that we need to consider?
So the first thing, once again, is NCR registration. Are they registered with the National Credit Regulator?
Okay.
The second one is upfront fees, immediately if they ask you to pay an upfront fee. The third one is look at the email address. If it's a known credit provider, they will not use a Gmail, a Yahoo, or an Outlook. And then also the type of language that they use. They're not just going to Facebook you and say, I'm going to give you a loan. Also documentation. What kind of documentation are they asking you? Payslip, bank statement, credit bureau checks, and also do they provide you with a quote and with a proper document?
Yes. And those are the documents that obviously when we do our investigations we look for. To check whether the credit that's been advanced is in order. Okay. So if without those documents, then really there is a problem. Okay. That means that credit provider is not registered with the NCR, and that then becomes a major problem, and that's where the abuses come in. And obviously we're now moving into this evolution of AI, which is becoming quite a big thing. Right. And AI it's so broad that there needs to be regulations around that as well, and we need to circumvent any future abuses that may come from there, because I mean AI literally mimics you. It can do so much, and as a result that could prove to be quite detrimental to our consumers, those consumers that we're trying to protect. And also the credit providers. I mean, there's an anomaly that we go only after credit providers. No, our duty is to regulate the credit providers, yes, but also to protect the rights of the credit providers equal to that of the consumers. So I think that's where people need to understand that we regulate that they do the right things, and as a consumer also do the right thing. Yes. If you're going to have multiple loans, and you get to a point of desperation, that is where they will catch you out. Okay. That is where they will advertise on the Facebooks. I mean, really, guys, Facebook, TikTok. Right. Be wary of that. A reasonable credit provider would have even a company registration number. You can also go as far as checking SIPC if that particular company is in fact registered. So it's not just the NCR number, it's broad. But when in doubt, I will say do contact the National Credit Regulator, contact the Microfinance South Africa, do your own cross checks to check if that particular credit provider in fact exists. But I liked what you said, the Yahoo and the Gmails, that should be a red flag. The upfront payment, it's a red flag. So I think it's a matter of just applying your mind to things and really trying to understand, is this a legit credit provider?
So Leonie, if I want to get a loan from you as a micro lender, and then you ask for all the documentation, and then I get Tebogo's papers, I get Tebogo's ID, especially if everything is done online, I get an ID and everything else. How do you ascertain that I'm the legit owner of this account?
So our online lenders, they make use of great technology to ensure that this is actually the person that is taking out the loan. So there is AI, there's technology that's involved there to make sure the person applying for this loan is actually the one that's getting the loan. So I think that's the technology that they don't necessarily share with everyone, but it's still difficult. There's still fraud that happens. The other thing that I think consumers should watch out for is the interest that's being charged. Flat rate of 30% is not allowed. There is an initiation fee, there's a service fee, and then there's the interest element. So if they say a flat rate of 30% or 50% or even 100% per month, you must know that this is a scam. So look at the interest that's being charged per product as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
so
do regulate the informal ones, I would say, maybe the Stockfells,
look, the Stockfells are becoming quite a big trend, and I know that Microfinance South Africa doesn't. I don't know if they are part of your, and they are really becoming a problem, because I do know that Stockfells are charging people 30% and 35%, some even 50%. And, the Act, unfortunately, doesn't allow us to go as far as that. And the complication there is that they are registered under a bank. So a stokvel will have an account that is held in a bank. And they have a constitution that they will then submit to the bank. They will have their own bank account and all of that. So it's very difficult because now you have three parties. You have, you know, the consumer, here's this bank, and here's the stokvel that holds this bank account.
Okay, so who regulates the interest then? Is it your office?
We regulate the interest.
The NCR.
Okay.
Yes.
The interest for us, it's very clear. I mean,
what's the interest? So it's lower than 30%, eh?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Much lower.
Much lower.
It's 5%
It's
for the first
5%.
loan.
No,
and
3% for the
second.
first loan.
Yes.
Yeah, 5% for the first loan,
And
you're right.
3%
And
for the
3%
second.
for any other subsequent loans.
Yes.
Gosh, we've been scammed all these years.
Exactly. Exactly. So make sure the members are MFSA and NCR registered.
Yes.
All right, ladies, lovely chatting to you.
Thank
We
you so
definitely
much
need more
for
time,
having
but
us.
time's not on our side. But it's been a very fruitful conversation. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights and thoughts with us.
As well.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Great
you so
stuff.
much.
Banyolo ke mbukela sesifike emaphethelweni ehlelo lethu namhlanje sihlangane futhi evikini elidako lapha mamba phambili SABC 1 Mzansi for sure naku SABC Plus lapho ke sihlalisela ke lenye indzaba letawutsinza wena nemalungelo akho njengemthengi from Miss Mphiwe Ngongwane and the rest of the team sithi ke nisale kahle and do have a great week ahead. Cheers.